Part 1. Who is God really? The sovereignty of God over all things. Who is God really? This question is one of the deepest, oldest, and at the same time most personal questions of humanity. Because how we see God determines how we see life, how we understand suffering, how we experience hope, and how we understand ourselves. Many people carry a distorted image of God within them, a God of arbitrariness, a God of punishment, or a distant God who created the world and then withdrew from it. Others see God only as love, but without power, or as power, but without love. Yet the biblical testimony paints a far deeper, greater, and at the same time more comforting picture. In this video, we want to approach the question step by step. Who is God really, according to the Bible? Not superficially, not in a shortened form, but honestly, deeply, and spiritually. First, we begin with a foundational point. God is the origin of everything, and He stands above everything, above light and darkness, above good and evil, above order and chaos, above life and death. At first, this may sound unsettling to some. To others, it may even seem offensive. But when properly understood, it is one of the most comforting truths of all. Let us first listen to one of the most powerful verses in the Bible. The prophet Isaiah records God's own words. "I am the Lord and there is no other. I form the light and create darkness. I bring peace and create calamity. I, the Lord, do all these things." Isaiah 45:7. This verse is often misunderstood or quickly rejected. Some say, how can a good God create darkness? Or, how can God bring calamity? But to understand this verse, we must look deeper. The Bible does not say here that God acts morally evil. It does not say that God sins or loves wickedness. It says something else. God is sovereign over all reality. Nothing exists outside His rule. Nothing slips out of His control. Nothing surprises Him. Nothing forces Him. God is not part of the cosmos. He is not one being among other beings. He is not a player on the field of world history. He is the one who created the field, who set the rules, and who carries time itself. Light and darkness, these are not merely moral categories here, but expressions of order and disruption, of building up and judgment, of peace and brokenness. When God creates calamity, the Bible does not mean an evil heart, but righteous action in a fallen world. Judgment where injustice reigns, shaking where pride rules. God remains at all times holy, always just, always good. Evil does not arise from God's nature. Evil arises from the misuse of freedom by created beings. But, and this is crucial, even this evil does not escape God. The Bible does not show us a God who desperately tries to contain evil. It shows us a God who limits evil, directs it, and ultimately overcomes it. A particularly powerful example of this is found in the story of Joseph. Joseph is betrayed by his own brothers, sold out of jealousy, dragged away as a slave, unjustly condemned, forgotten for years. If we look at this story from a human perspective, we see only injustice, only wickedness, only suffering. But in the end, when Joseph stands before his brothers, he says a sentence that summarizes the entire mystery of divine sovereignty. "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Genesis 50:20. Pay close attention to the words. The brothers meant it for evil. Their intention was evil. Their action was evil. God calls evil by its name, but God meant it for good. Not because the evil was good, but because God was greater than the evil. God did not cause the wickedness of human beings, but He took it and wove it into His plan of redemption. Here we encounter a powerful image. God is like a master weaver. A weaver does not work only with light threads. He also uses dark ones, not because darkness is beautiful, but because it creates depth, contrast, form. Up close, we often see only dark knots, confusion, pain, lack of understanding. But from the perspective of the master, a perfect pattern emerges. This does not mean that suffering is harmless. It does not mean that God minimizes our pain. On the contrary, the Bible shows us a God who takes suffering so seriously that he himself enters this world of suffering. But we will come to that in a later part. For today, it is important to understand this. God never loses control, not even when the world appears chaotic, not even when people act wickedly, not even when we cannot recognize God's hand. The prophet Daniel summarizes this truth as follows. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" Daniel 4:35. This is not a threat, it is comfort. Because if God is truly sovereign, then evil does not have the final word. Then chaos is not the end. Then suffering is not meaningless. Then there is a greater plan, a deeper purpose, a hope that goes beyond what is visible. Many people reject God not because they know him, but because they have a false image of him, a God who is either too weak to intervene or too cruel to be loved. The Bible shows us a different God, a God who is so powerful that even evil must serve him, not willingly, not out of love, but inevitably. In the next part, we will face one of the most difficult questions. Why does God allow evil? And how does the Bible distinguish between God's will, human freedom, and the reality of a fallen world? But for now, hold on to this truth. God is the origin of everything. God stands above everything, and nothing, truly nothing, can stop his plan of redemption. Part 2. Why does God allow evil? Freedom, the fall, and divine limits. Why does God allow evil? This question is perhaps the most common and at the same time the most painful question of faith. It is not asked only by skeptics. It is asked above all by those who suffer, by people who pray and still experience pain. If God is good, why is there suffering? If God is all-powerful, why doesn't he intervene? If God is love, why this world? The Bible does not avoid these questions. It does not gloss over them, and it does not give simple answers. Instead, it leads us deeper. To understand evil, we must first understand one thing. God created human beings with real freedom. Love without freedom is not love. Obedience without choice is not relationship. Trust without the possibility of betrayal is meaningless. Already on the very first pages of the Bible, we see this freedom. God creates humanity in his image. He places them in a good garden. He provides for them. He speaks with them. He protects them. And then God does something remarkable. He sets a boundary. From every tree of the garden you may eat, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. This boundary is not a sign of cruelty. It is a sign of freedom. Without this boundary, there would be no real choice, no real relationship, no real trust. Human beings would only have function, but God wanted to be loved freely. Evil does not begin with God. It begins with human mistrust. The serpent sows doubt, not about God's existence, but about God's character. Did God really say? This remains the central temptation to this day. Not the denial of God, but the distortion of who he is. Human beings come to believe that God is withholding something from them, that God does not truly mean well, that self-determination is better than trust, And so humanity chooses against God, not out of ignorance, but out of freedom. Here, evil is born in the moral sense, not as a substance, but as a turning away from the good. Evil is not a thing, it is a lack, a rupture, a separation. Just as darkness is not something in itself, but the absence of light. From that moment on, humanity lives in a fallen world, a world where freedom is abused, where power corrupts, where love breaks apart. Yet, and this is crucial, God does not withdraw. He does not abandon the world to chaos. He does not say, then do whatever you want. Instead, a long path of redemption begins. The Bible shows us that God allows evil, but never without limits. He sets boundaries for it, limits of time, limits of power, limits of purpose. A striking example is found in the book of Job. Job is a righteous man, and yet he is struck by unimaginable suffering. But before the suffering begins, we see something important. Evil may go only as far as God allows. Behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand. Later, this boundary is adjusted, but it is never removed. Evil is active, but it is not sovereign. It is real, but it is not almighty. It acts, but it does not rule. God remains the final Lord of history. Many ask, why doesn't God simply prevent evil? The honest answer is, because a world without the possibility of evil would also be a world without freedom, and a world without freedom would be a world without real love. But God goes even further. He does not merely allow evil, he is able to transform it. Not every suffering is explained on this earth. Not every wound is healed here. Not every question is answered now. But no tear is meaningless. No pain is unseen. No suffering is wasted. The Apostle Paul writes, where sin increased, grace increased all the more. Romans 5:20. This does not mean that sin is good. It means that God's grace is greater. Evil is real, but it is not equal in power to God. It is not God's rival on the same level. It is a limited enemy in a limited time with a limited end. And that end does not begin with power, but with love. In the next part, we will look at how God himself enters into suffering, how love takes on form, and why the cross is the deepest key to understanding God. But for now, hold on to this. God allows evil because he takes freedom seriously. He limits evil because he is sovereign, and he overcomes evil because he is love. Part 3, God is love. The cross as the center of all reality. If we truly want to understand who God is, we must not stop at abstract attributes, not at power, not at omniscience, not at sovereignty alone, because all these attributes find their deepest expression in a single word: love. The Bible does not only say God loves, it says something more radical: God is love. 1 John 4:16. Love is not just something God does. Love is who God is. Everything God does flows from this very nature: his actions, his justice, his patience, his judgment, his grace. But what does that mean in concrete terms? Many people define love as a feeling, as sympathy, as approval, as goodwill. Biblical love goes deeper. It is self-giving, faithful, willing to sacrifice. And nowhere is this love seen more clearly than at the cross. The cross is not an accident of history. It is not a tragic misunderstanding. It is not the failure of God. The cross is the place where God's very nature is revealed. The Apostle John writes, "This is how God's love was revealed among us. God sent his one and only Son into the world so that we might live through him." 1 John 4:9. Here several truths meet at once. God takes evil seriously. He does not trivialize guilt. He calls sin by its name. And at the same time, He bears the consequence himself. At the cross, we do not see a cruel God who demands suffering. We see a God who takes suffering upon himself, not out of compulsion, not out of weakness, but out of love. Jesus himself says, "No one takes my life from me, but I lay it down of my own accord." That is decisive. God does not force anyone to suffer for him. He suffers himself. The cross shows us God is not distant from human pain. He is not an observer from afar. He is not a cold judge standing above suffering. He is the God who descends into our darkness. This means something very important. God does not defeat evil through brute force, not through destruction, not through coercion. He defeats it through love, through self-giving, through faithfulness to the very end, through trust, even in the darkness. At the cross, for a moment, everything seems lost, hope shattered, faith shaken, the future erased. And yet it is precisely there that God is at work most deeply. What people see as defeat becomes victory. What appears to be the end becomes the beginning. What seems meaningless becomes redemption. Here is fulfilled what we have already seen. God takes evil and transforms it, not by calling it good, but by overcoming it. Paul summarizes it this way: He canceled the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands. He set it aside, nailing it to the cross. Colossians 2:14. The cross, then, is not a sign of God's absence. It is the highest expression of his nearness. And that is exactly why the cross is the key to understanding all suffering. This does not mean that we can explain suffering, or justify it, or minimize it. But it does mean suffering is not godless. Suffering is not meaningless. Suffering is not the end. God has shown that he works even through suffering. And if God can transform the cross, then there is no darkness in which he cannot be present. Many people ask, where was God when I suffered? The answer of the gospel is, he was there. He was there because he knows what suffering feels like. Not theoretically, not from a distance, but from experience. And that is precisely why the cross is not a sign of hopelessness. It is the heart of hope. In the next part, we will see how God uses suffering to shape, to heal, and to mature. Not because suffering is good, but because God is good. But for now, hold on to this. God is love. This love is not cheap. It is costly. It is self-giving. And it is stronger than every form of evil. Part 4. Suffering, Formation, and Hope. How God transforms through darkness. Suffering is one of those experiences we do not choose. No one wishes for pain. No one asks for loss. No one deliberately seeks darkness. And yet it meets all of us, in different forms, at different times, with different depths. The decisive question, therefore, is not whether we suffer, but how does God meet us in our suffering? The Bible gives no shallow answer. It does not say, pull yourself together. It does not say, it's not that bad. It does not say, a strong faith does not suffer. On the contrary, the Bible takes suffering very seriously. Jesus himself weeps at the grave of his friend. He knows fear. He knows loneliness. He knows abandonment. Suffering is not a sign of weak faith. Suffering is part of a broken world. But here a truth comes into view, quiet yet deeply comforting. God wastes no suffering. This does not mean that suffering is good, or intended, or beautiful. It means that God can even use what is dark to bring forth light. The Apostle Paul writes, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him." Romans 8:28. This verse is often misunderstood. It does not say everything is good. It does not say everything feels good. It does not say everything makes sense immediately. It says God is at work in everything, not incidentally, not occasionally, but actively. Even in pain, even in confusion, even in the night. Suffering can shape us, not automatically, not mechanically, not without guidance. But in God's hands, suffering can create depth, humility where pride once was, compassion where indifference once lived, dependence where self-confidence once ruled. Many of the most mature, loving, and deeply grounded people were not formed by easy lives, but by suffering that was held. God is not a God who breaks us to make us small. He is a God who refines us to make us free. The Bible often uses the image of fire for this, not as destruction, but as purification. Gold is not valuable because it was never in the fire. It is valuable because it passed through it. This is often how God works in our lives as well. Not every question is answered. Not every wound heals immediately. Not every path becomes easy, but no path is walked alone. God does not promise us a life without suffering, but He promises us His presence. I am with you always. That is not consolation by distraction. That is a promise. And that promise reaches beyond this life. For the Bible does not end with suffering, it ends with hope, with a vision in which God Himself says, He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. Revelation 21. This is not a symbol of escaping reality. It is the goal of the story. Evil has an end. Suffering has an end. Death does not have the final word. God does not only transform individual situations, He renews everything. That is why Christians can hope, not because they understand everything, but because they know God. A God who is sovereign, who is just, who is holy, who loves, a God who limits evil, who shares in suffering, who overcomes darkness, and who one day will make all things new. So when we ask, who is God really? The biblical answer is, God is love itself, a love strong enough to allow freedom, patient enough to endure suffering, and powerful enough to redeem everything.